How's it going, my bakers? I hope you're having a lovely day so far. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I have a super slow fermented deep dish pan pizza for you. So let's go to the kitchen and get started. I've been having a great time remaking some of my old recipes lately. The no-knead method and the cold fermentation method have completely changed my bread making style. And all I want to do now is show you the possibilities of these methods. Any dough can be cold fermented to boost its flavor. And as far as I can tell, so far, any dough can be made with the no-knead method too. Both methods combined can make the bread taste better and simplify the process. And it is certainly the case for this recipe. With just a few folds and a couple days in the fridge, this deep dish pan pizza gets elevated up there with the best. If you don't want to wait 2 days, then you can certainly bake this on the next day. It's your pizza, treat it the way you want to treat it and use the toppings that you want to use. Saying that, I did include the recipe for the sauce as an extra. Okay, let's see what ingredients we'll need. And it's pretty standard. Some white bread flour, olive oil, yeast, salt and water. It is not the ingredients that make this bread, it is the method. Let's see what we need for the sauce. We'll need some tinned tomatoes. You can use chopped or you can use whole. A little bit of olive oil, some oregano, salt, an optional pinch of chili flakes and a couple of cloves of garlic. Now as for the equipment, we'll need something to bake the pizzas in. I'm going to be using my trusty Lloyd's pans. Since this is a deep dish pizza, you want a baking tray with high sides. This thing is super high quality. I've used it for a long time. In fact, I use it for my tray bakes like brownies and coffee cakes and such. You'll find the measurements for it in the written recipe. Okay, we'll also need a bowl, we'll need a pot for cooking the sauce, scales, a dough scraper and a temperature probe. Okay, let's get started. My kitchen is around 22 degrees Celsius. And I'm using water at around 25 degrees Celsius. I'm aiming for a final dough temperature of 25. And that is 77 degrees Fahrenheit. In a large bowl, combine the water, the yeast, the salt and the olive oil. And then give it all a good mix. You want to dissolve the salt completely. Since we're not kneading this dough, this is our best chance to do it. I'm going to ferment this dough in the fridge for 48 hours. So I'm only using 0.5% of yeast. And for reference, my fridge temperature is 5 degrees Celsius or 41 degrees Fahrenheit. If your fridge is cooler, you may want to use slightly more yeast. Okay, once the salt is completely dissolved, add the final ingredient, which is the bread flour. Then grab your scraper and mix this to a dough. Mix until there's no dry flour left. And then mix for a few seconds more, quite vigorously, just to ensure that all the olive oil is distributed evenly. Now how you handle it from here is up to you. I'm going to divide this dough in half right now because I'm making 2 pizzas. If you're making one big one, don't divide it. If you're making 2 small ones and you don't want to divide it now, you can divide it on the day of baking. I like to divide mine in case I decide to bake one pizza earlier than the other. But no matter what you decide to do, once the dough is in the bowl, take its temperature. 25.2, that's just about right. If your dough is slightly cooler, don't worry about it, it's totally fine. If it's quite a bit warmer, I would suggest reducing the initial folding intervals. I'm going to put my dough in the fridge for 30 minutes, then take it out and fold it. If your dough is warmer, put it in the fridge for 10 minutes and fold it sooner. Because folding serves 2 purposes. It replaces kneading, but it also helps with cooling the dough down. And today, I'm going to try a different folding method. I didn't want to make a mess on the table, so I decided to fold it in my hands. And it works similarly to the table fold, but only upside down. Wet your hands with water so they don't stick, then pick the dough up, push its sides down and back up into the middle. Keep folding the sides into the middle of the dough, going around in a circle until the dough ball is nice and tight. Once it's done, put it back into the bowl, cover it up, pop it back into the fridge, and this time leave it there for a few hours. I usually make my dough in the afternoon. I then give it a fold after 30 minutes, put it back into the fridge and give it another fold just before bedtime. And the second fold goes exactly the same as the first one. Wet your hands with water, pick the dough up and fold the sides down and up into the middle. I hope that makes sense. Now back into the fridge it goes and we'll give it one more fold after the first 24 hours of cold fermentation are done. This is the halfway point of bulk fermentation. The doughs are puffed up pretty nice, so fold them gently. You don't want to tear them now. At this point I realized I should have used larger bowls. So I'm going to transfer my dough balls to more suited containers, because it really looked like they were just about ready to climb out of their bowls. Okay, cover these bad boys up and leave them in the fridge for the rest of bulk fermentation. That's another 24 hours. But if you don't want to wait that long, you can certainly make your pizzas right now. But what I'm going to do is make the sauce. And it starts with a couple of cloves of crushed garlic. And yes, we're not chopping it, we're just crushing it. We only want the flavor of the garlic, nothing else. So crush your cloves, place them in a small pan, add the olive oil and bring this over to the stove. I learned this method from my sister. She has lived in Italy for quite some time. I would have normally chopped the garlic, but this method works really well. So place your garlic on medium heat and cook it until it's nicely browned. but don't let it get too dark, otherwise it'll be bitter. Once you see that beautiful golden brown color, remove the garlic. It has done its job. We don't need it here anymore, but don't discard it. You can still use it for something else. Okay, moving on, we can add the rest of the sauce ingredients. The salt, the pinch of chili flakes, oregano, and the tomatoes. I would suggest using chopped tomatoes if you don't have a blender at home. After adding all the ingredients, mix everything up, bring the sauce up to a simmer, and then cook it slowly for around 20 minutes. This will reduce it down to make it thicker. It will also make it sweeter and intensify the tomatoey flavor. If you want a sweeter and thicker sauce, cook it for another 10 minutes or so. Give it a taste and see if it suits you. After cooking, you want to blitz it up so it's nice and smooth. We don't want those tomato skins in the sauce. And of course, if you're using chopped tomatoes, you don't have to worry about this. The sauce will be slightly chunky, but there's nothing wrong with that. And that's it. That's how you make a quick and easy pizza sauce. It is quite rich and flavorful, especially for the amount of time that it takes to make. And you can really taste the garlic in it. There is no need to chop it up and blitz it into the sauce. I actually find that sometimes blitzing the garlic into the sauce makes it slightly bitter. I'll be using this method from now. Okay, the sauce is done and it's already the next day. The full 48 hours of bulk fermentation are over. And just look at these bubbly boys. They are so nice and wobbly. They're gonna make some great tasting pizza. And I'm sure you'll agree that kneading a dough like this is a waste of time and energy. A few lazy folds is all that's needed. Okay, let's prep our trays with plenty of olive oil. Of course you can use much less if you want to. It's mostly here for richness. I felt quite hungry and greedy on the day of baking, so... Okay, the trays have been prepped, let's get them out of the way and prep the dough. This is essentially the final shaping, but it goes exactly the same as the folds that we did earlier. And again, wet your hands with water or rub them with some olive oil, because it's handy anyway. Fold the dough into a nice ball, don't fold it too tight, you don't want to tear it. Then repeat with the next, place them both in their trays, and they're ready for final proofing. You can cover them so the surface doesn't dry out, or you could rub them with some extra olive oil, and in that case you can skip the cling film. The temperature of my kitchen was around 22 degrees Celsius or 72 degrees Fahrenheit, so the final proof took me around 2 hours. During the final hour of fermentation, preheat your oven, 230 degrees Celsius, fan off, and that is 446 degrees Fahrenheit. You want your dough to at least double in size. If it hasn't, leave it for longer. But if it's ready, wet your hands, stretch the dough out so it fits the tray, pat it down, poke it with your fingers, make sure it's nice and even, well, more or less at least. I topped each dough with 3 big tablespoons of sauce. There were a couple of tablespoons of sauce left over, and I used 500 grams or 1.1 pounds of cheese between both of them. And that's not counting the buffalo mozzarella on the right. That was probably another half a pound or 250 grams. Then I followed the buffalo mozzarella with some cracked black pepper and some dried oregano. On the left I go about 40 slices of spicy pepperoni, and then in the end I decided to use up the last of the sauce, and that's going on the pepperoni pizza. My oven's not that big, so I'm going to bake them one by one. The mozzarella pizza is going in the fridge for now so it doesn't overproof, but the pepperoni one is going straight in the oven. Both of them will take around 25 minutes to fully bake. It of course depends on your oven. My oven only has one heating element, and that's at the top. I'm using a baking steel as a baking platform to heat the pizza from the bottom. It works pretty well, but it's not great. Okay, the pepperoni is done, and just look at that crusty edge. That's a Detroit style pizza thing. If you don't want that crusty edge, then don't spread the sauce and the cheese too close to it. I personally love it though. I wouldn't call it burnt, it's just very caramelized. It does not taste bitter. Okay, this bad boy is baking up pretty nice too. One thing to note, I sliced the buffalo mozzarella, then I let it sit on a plate to drain for a while, and I removed the liquid. It was just precaution to prevent the pizza from being too soggy on top. And there you have it, 2 beautiful deep dish pizzas. These things will taste absolutely amazing. Let's have a closer look at them. Here's that dark edge I was talking about on the pepperoni one. And look at that beautiful open crumb. It is so soft and bouncy. I'm not gonna lie, I could easily eat both of these trays of pizza by myself. It goes down so easily, it's so soft and light. As you can see, the edge on the mozzarella one is slightly lighter. The pepperoni fat adds quite a bit of color to the other one too. But I guess it doesn't really matter. These are my pizzas, you'll be making your pizzas. Top them with whatever you want. So what do you think this pizza recipe? And what's your favorite pizza? Let me know down in the comments. If you want to see more videos like this one, click over here. Subscribe to the channel, click right here. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.